Hashtag the human sniper. Part 1. Staff Sergeant Maya Chun crouched behind the twisted metal remains of what used to be a transport shuttle. Her breathing was steady, controlled, even as plasma bolts sizzled past her position. The alien invasion of Kepler 442b had been going on for 3 standard months, and the human colony was losing badly. Another human rat hiding in the ruins, laughed Commander Zwyxthak, his voice booming across the battlefield through his species' natural vocal amplifiers. The Kethmori were 8 feet tall, covered in chitinous armor that could deflect most human weapons, and they had been conquering worlds for over 2,000 years. To them, humans were just another primitive species to be enslaved or eliminated. Maya adjusted her modified M2010 enhanced sniper rifle. The weapon had been upgraded with alien technology salvaged from earlier battles, but it was still fundamentally human engineering. Simple, reliable, and deadly in the right hands. The Kethmori had been mocking human weapons since they arrived, calling them primitive projectile toys. Through her scope, Maya could see the alien commander standing proudly in the open, his 4 arms gesturing wildly as he directed his troops. The Kethmori didn't believe in cover. Their armor and superior technology had made them arrogant. They walked through battlefields like tourists, barely acknowledging human resistance. Look at them scurrying, the Zwyxthak continued, his mandibles clicking in what passed for laughter among his kind. These humans think their little metal bullets can pierce our bioarmor. Pathetic creatures, really. No wonder they've never left their single-star system before we found them. Maya's finger found the trigger. She had been studying Kethmori anatomy for weeks, ever since she had managed to examine the bodies of fallen aliens. Their armor was nearly impenetrable from the front, but there was a small gap where the neck met the torso. It was only visible from certain angles, and only for someone with exceptional marksmanship skills. The wind was calm. Distance, 1,847 meters. The shot was at the absolute edge of her rifle's effective range, but Maya had been making impossible shots since she was 12 years old, hunting deer in the mountains of Montana with her grandfather's old rifle. "Sir, perhaps we should advance more carefully," suggested one of Zwyxthak's lieutenants, a younger Kethmori named Veltar. "The humans have been using guerrilla tactics and silence." Zwyxthak's voice cracked like a whip. "You sound like a frightened hatchling. These humans are insects. Their weapons cannot harm us. Their tactics are primitive, and their spirit is broken. Watch, I will stand here in the open for one of their time units, and not a single human will dare to engage me." Maya smiled grimly. The alien commander had just signed his own death warrant. She calculated wind speed, bullet drop, and the slight rotation of the planet. Her grandfather had taught her that patience was a sniper's greatest weapon. "Wait for the perfect moment, little hawk," he used to say. "The mountain doesn't rush to meet the bullet." The Kethmori forces had spread out across the ruined colonial settlement of New Hope. What had once been a thriving community of 5,000 humans was now a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered dreams. The aliens had bombarded it from orbit before landing, then moved through the ruins systematically, hunting down survivors. Maya was one of only 37 humans left alive on the entire planet. The rest were either dead or had been taken as slaves. But she wasn't just any survivor. She was the daughter of 2 decorated military veterans, trained from childhood in survival and warfare. When the aliens came, she had been working as a colonial defense instructor, teaching settlers how to protect themselves from wildlife and potential threats. She never imagined the threat would come from the stars. "The human military is broken," Zwyxthak announced to his troops. Their orbital defenses were swept aside in minutes. Their ground forces scattered like leaves in a storm. What remains are a few terrified civilians hiding in holes, waiting to die. "We have already won this world." Through her scope, Maya watched the alien commander's movements. He was showing off now, performing what looked like a victory dance. His armor gleamed in the alien sun, and his 4 arms moved in complex patterns that probably had cultural significance to his species. Maya didn't care about alien culture. She cared about the fact that he was standing perfectly still. The crosshairs settled on the tiny gap in his neck armor. Maya's heartbeat slowed, her breathing became shallow, and the world narrowed to just the target and the shot. This was the moment her grandfather had prepared her for, though he never could have imagined it would be against an alien invader. You know what amuses me most about these humans? Zywix continued, unaware that death was looking at him through a scope. They actually believed their primitive weapons could challenge our technology. Their bullets, as they call them, are made of simple metal alloys. Our bioarmor is grown specifically to deflect such attacks. It would take a miracle for them to. Maya's rifle spoke. The hypervelocity round crossed 1,847 meters in 2.3 seconds. It struck Zywix precisely where Maya had aimed, sliding through the gap in his armor like a knife through silk. The alien commander's boastful speech ended abruptly as he collapsed, purple blood spraying from the wound. For a moment, the battlefield fell completely silent. The Kethmori troops stared at their fallen commander in shock. It was impossible. Their armor was supposed to be impenetrable to human weapons. Yet their leader lay dead, killed by a single shot from what they considered a primitive projectile weapon. "Sniper!" one of the aliens finally screamed. "Human sniper, take cover." But Maya was already moving. She had learned long ago that a sniper's greatest enemy was staying in one place too long. As the Kethmori began frantically searching for her position, she was already sliding through the ruins toward her next firing position. Behind her, she could hear the aliens arguing in their clicking, chittering language. They were confused, frightened even. Their supposedly invincible commander had been killed by a human weapon they had been taught to dismiss as harmless. Maya reached her secondary position and set up her rifle again. Through her scope, she could see the Kethmori troops clustering around their leader's body, their formation broken, their confidence shattered. The arrogant aliens who had been walking through the battlefield like they owned it were now crouching behind cover, looking nervously at every shadow. Lieutenant Veltar, now the highest-ranking Kethmori on the battlefield, was trying to restore order. "Spread out. Use the sensor sweeps. Find this human sniper." Maya adjusted her scope and began looking for her next target. The aliens had stopped laughing at human weapons. Now, she was going to teach them why they should have been afraid from the beginning. The hunt had begun. #the human sniper. Part 2. 2 days had passed since Maya killed Commander Zywix, and the Kethmori forces were beginning to unravel. What had started as a routine mop-up operation was becoming a nightmare for the alien invaders. 7 more of their soldiers had died to perfectly placed shots, each one finding the tiny gaps in their supposedly impenetrable armor. Lieutenant Veltar crouched behind a crashed human vehicle, his 4 arms shaking slightly as he tried to coordinate his remaining forces. The confident army that had landed 3 months ago was now reduced to a paranoid group of soldiers who jumped at every shadow. "Report," he demanded through his communicator. "Sector 7 is clear," came a nervous reply from Trooper Kexmol. "But we found another body. Sergeant Thackerin. Single shot, precise entry through the neck joint." The human sniper struck again. Veltar's mandibles clicked in frustration. "That makes 8 of our warriors dead in 2 days. 8 against 1 primitive human with a metal projectile weapon. The High Command is asking questions, and I have no answers to give them." The young Kethmori officer had never experienced anything like this in his military career. The Kethmori Empire had conquered 47 worlds, and never had a single enemy sniper cause such disruption to their operations. Their bioarmor was supposed to make them invulnerable to kinetic weapons. Their sensor technology was supposed to detect any hidden enemies. Yet somehow, this human remained invisible and deadly. "Sir," interrupted Communications Officer Yektol, "we're receiving another transmission from the fleet. Admiral Carthex wants to know why we haven't secured the planet yet. He's threatening to send down additional forces." "Additional forces?" Veltar's voice cracked. "We came here with 200 elite warriors. We now have 83 combat-effective troops remaining. Most of the losses aren't even from this sniper. They're from the general breakdown in unit cohesion. The troops are afraid to move in the open, afraid to advance, afraid to even patrol properly." Meanwhile, Maya was studying her prey from a concealed position 3 kilometers away. She had spent the last 2 days moving constantly, never using the same firing position twice, always staying ahead of their search patterns. The aliens were systematic, but predictable. They moved in standard formations, used standard search protocols, and relied too heavily on their technology. Maya's grandfather had taught her that technology was a tool, not a crutch. A rifle doesn't make you a marksman, little hawk, he used to say. Training, patience, and understanding your enemy. That's what makes you deadly. She was proving that wisdom correct. The Kethmori had better weapons, better armor, and better sensors, but they didn't understand the kind of war they were now fighting. They were used to overwhelming technological superiority, making tactics irrelevant. They had never faced an enemy who could turn their strengths against them. Through her scope, Maya watched a patrol of 6 Kethmori soldiers moving through the ruins of the colonial market district. They were bunched together, moving slowly, checking every corner multiple times. Fear had made them inefficient. Instead of the confident warriors who had strutted through these same ruins 2 days ago, they now looked like nervous prey. The patrol leader, identified by a slightly different armor coloring, was Sergeant Morkex. Maya had been observing him for hours, learning his patterns, his habits, his weaknesses. He had a tendency to expose himself when he thought an area was secure. In 30 seconds, he would round a corner and pause to signal the all-clear to his squad. For exactly 2.7 seconds, his neck joint would be visible from Maya's position. Maya controlled her breathing, steadied her aim, and waited. Right on schedule, Morkex appeared and raised one of his 4 arms to signal his squad. Maya's shot took him in the neck joint, and he dropped instantly. His squad scattered, screaming in their alien language, but Maya was already packing up her rifle. Ghost 7 to all units, came the panicked radio transmission that Maya intercepted on her captured Kethmori communicator. Morkex is down. The Phantom has struck again. I repeat, the Phantom has struck again. Maya smiled at the name they had given her. The Phantom. It was better than she had hoped for. Fear was becoming her greatest weapon. As she moved to her next position, Maya reflected on how dramatically the situation had changed. 3 months ago, the Kethmori had been laughing at human weapons and tactics. Now, they were giving her a respectful nickname and changing their entire operational doctrine to deal with a single sniper. But Maya wasn't content to just pick off individual soldiers. She had been studying their organization, their communication patterns, their supply lines. The aliens were methodical, but they were also predictable. They followed protocols even when those protocols no longer made sense. That evening, Maya positioned herself near the Kethmori forward command post. Through her scope, she could see Lieutenant Veltar meeting with his officers, trying to plan their next move. The aliens had set up their command post in what used to be the colony's administrative building, thinking the solid structure would protect them from sniper fire. They were wrong. Maya had spent hours studying the building's architecture. She knew every window, every sight line, every angle of approach. More importantly, she had noticed something the aliens had missed. The building's emergency ventilation system had external access points. Instead of trying for another long-range shot, Maya decided to get creative. She spent the next 4 hours moving through the ruins, collecting materials she needed. Explosive charges from demolished buildings, timer mechanisms from abandoned vehicles, and, most importantly, a gas canister from the colony's emergency response depot. The Kethmori might have superior technology, but humans had been improvising weapons of war for millennia. As dawn approached, Maya triggered her improvised device. The explosion wasn't large, but it didn't need to be. The blast created a breach in the building's structural integrity, causing a section of the roof to collapse directly onto the command post. Lieutenant Veltar survived, but barely. 3 of his senior officers were dead, crushed under tons of debris. The psychological impact was even more devastating than the physical damage. The aliens had thought they were safe in their fortified position, but the human sniper had found a way to reach them even there. She's not just a sniper, Veltar whispered to his communications officer as they pulled themselves from the rubble. She's something else entirely. Something we weren't prepared for. From her observation post 2 kilometers away, Maya watched the Kethmori forces evacuating the ruined command post in complete disarray. Some were carrying wounded, others were just running. The disciplined alien army that had conquered dozens of worlds was beginning to resemble a panicked mob. But Maya wasn't finished. Why hashtag the human sniper? Part 3. Maya crept through the alien supply depot in the early morning darkness, her movements silent as a ghost. Over the past week, she had evolved from a sniper into something the Kethmori had no name for in their language. Their military doctrine had no protocols for dealing with a single enemy who could appear anywhere, strike without warning, and vanish like smoke. The supply depot had been established in the colony's former industrial sector, where the aliens thought they would be safe from long-range sniper fire. Massive cargo containers formed walls around the complex, and Kethmori's sentries patrolled in pairs, their weapons ready, their heads constantly turning as they searched for threats. They were looking in the wrong places. Maya had spent 3 days studying their patrol patterns, their shift changes, their security protocols. The Kethmori were methodical to a fault, which made them predictable. They changed guards every 4 hours, always at the same locations, always following the same routes. Their technology made them confident, but it also made them lazy. She watched from concealment as 2 sentries approached her position. Troopers Coltax and Jamar, based on the markings she had learned to read on their armor. They were talking in low tones, their voices carrying clearly in the still air. "I heard they're bringing in specialists from the 7th Fleet," Coltax was saying. "Counter-sniper teams with advanced hunting protocols." "About time," Jamar replied. "This phantom is making us look like fools. 12 dead in 5 days, and we still haven't even seen her." "Her?" Coltax's mandibles clicked in confusion. "How do you know it's a female?" "The communications intercepts. The surviving humans call the sniper she when they think we're not listening." Apparently, even the other humans didn't know this warrior existed until she started hunting us. Maya smiled grimly. The Kethmori were learning, but not quickly enough. As the 2 sentries passed her hiding spot, she moved like liquid shadow, following them at a distance of exactly 12 meters. Her grandfather had taught her to move through forests without disturbing a single leaf. Moving through alien-occupied territory was just a different kind of hunting ground. When the sentries reached the gap in their patrol coverage that Maya had identified, she struck. 2 throwing knives, crafted from salvaged metal and weighted perfectly for her hand, found a small gaps in their neck armor simultaneously. Both aliens dropped without a sound. Maya dragged their bodies into the shadows and continued toward her real objective, the ammunition storage facility at the heart of the depot. The Kethmori had been using energy weapons primarily, but they also carried conventional explosive charges for demolition work. Maya intended to turn their own weapons against them. The storage facility was guarded by automated defense systems and 2 elite warriors from the Kethmori Royal Guard. These weren't regular troops. They were larger, more heavily armored, and carried weapons that could level city blocks. Maya had been observing them for 2 days, waiting for the right moment. That moment came when Lieutenant Veltar arrived for his scheduled inspection of the depot. The young officer had been promoted to temporary commander after the destruction of the previous command post, but the stress was clearly taking its toll. His movements were jerky, paranoid, and he jumped at every unexpected sound. "Status report," Veltar demanded as he approached the storage facility. "All secure, sir," replied Guard Captain Mordek, the larger of the 2 elite warriors. "No contacts, no anomalies. The Phantom hasn't been detected in this sector." "She's out there," Veltar said, his voice tight with barely controlled fear. "Watching us. Planning. We've lost 17 warriors in 6 days, and she's becoming more aggressive. First it was just long-range sniping, then improvised explosives. Yesterday, she killed 3 sentries with bladed weapons. She's escalating." Maya was indeed escalating, but not in the way the aliens expected. She had learned that the Kethmori military was based on rigid hierarchies and protocols. Remove the leadership, disrupt the communications, and the entire structure began to collapse. She wasn't just killing random soldiers anymore. She was systematically targeting the officers and specialists who kept their army functioning. From her concealment 50 meters away, Maya raised her rifle and sighted on Lieutenant Veltar. But she didn't fire. Instead, she waited, watching as the young officer moved through the depot, growing more and more agitated. "Sir," Guard Captain Mordek said carefully, "perhaps you should return to the secured command bunker. This location may not be safe for extended visits." "Nowhere is safe." Veltar's voice cracked. "She can appear anywhere. Yesterday, she somehow infiltrated our communications center and planted explosives in equipment that had been scanned for threats 3 times. 3 times. Our sensors detect nothing. Our patrols find nothing. Yet she moves through her positions like we're not even there." Maya's smile widened. Fear was indeed her greatest weapon, and it was working better than she had hoped. The Kethmori were beginning to see threats everywhere, turning their own paranoia against them. As Veltar and his escorts moved deeper into the depot, Maya activated the first part of her plan. She had spent hours the previous night planting small charges throughout the facility's power grid. Not enough to cause major explosions, but enough to create cascading failures in their electrical systems. The lights went out. In the sudden darkness, Maya heard the aliens shouting, their voices sharp with panic. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting strange shadows throughout the depot. The Kethmori guards immediately went to high alert, their weapons charging with distinctive whining sounds. "She's here," someone screamed. "The Phantom is here." But Maya wasn't in the depot anymore. She was 300 meters away, lying prone on a pile of rubble, watching the chaos through her scope. The aliens were running in all directions, firing at shadows, calling for backup that wouldn't arrive in time. Maya's real target wasn't the depot itself. It was the confusion and terror she could create. While the Kethmori were scrambling to secure their facility, she was moving to her next objective, their main communications array. The array was located on the highest intact building in the colony, heavily guarded and supposedly impossible to approach undetected. The Kethmori had learned from their earlier mistakes and established overlapping sensor coverage, patrol schedules that left no gaps, and backup systems for their backup systems. Maya had spent a week studying their security measures, and she had found the one weakness they couldn't account for. They were defending against a conventional assault. They had no protocols for dealing with someone who could climb. Using equipment salvaged from the colony's emergency services, Maya ascended the building's exterior in complete silence. The Kethmori sensors were focused on ground approaches and aerial threats. They weren't watching for someone climbing up the outside of the building like a spider. When she reached the communications level, Maya could see the alien technicians working frantically to re-establish contact with their forces in the depot. Through the windows, she counted 6 Kethmori operators and 2 guards. All of them were focused on their equipment, trying to understand why half their communication network had suddenly gone dark. Maya placed her charges carefully, timing them to create maximum confusion. When they detonated, the communications array didn't just go offline. It sent out a massive electromagnetic pulse that disrupted Kethmori equipment across the entire colony. In the chaos that followed, Maya vanished again, leaving behind only the legend of the Phantom Sniper who could strike anywhere and disappear like smoke. But this time, she left something else behind, a message. Written in Kethmori script on the wall of the communications center. Using a translation program she had extracted from captured equipment, Maya had left a simple message. Your empire ends here. Leave now, or join your fallen warriors. The Phantom, when Lieutenant Veltar read the message an hour later, his hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the report. The human sniper wasn't just killing his soldiers anymore. She was communicating directly with them, challenging the entire Kethmori empire to single combat. And somehow, impossibly, it seemed like she might be winning. "Give me a direct channel to the fleet," Veltar ordered. "I need to speak with Admiral Carthex immediately. We're not dealing with a simple sniper anymore. This human has become something else entirely." From her observation post in the ruins of the colony's church, Maya watched the aliens scurrying around like disturbed ants. She had successfully disrupted their operations, scattered their forces, and broken their morale. But she wasn't finished yet. The real battle was just beginning. #The Human Sniper. Part 4 Admiral Carthex materialized in the holographic projector aboard the orbital command ship, his massive form towering over the cowering figure of Lieutenant Veltar. The Admiral was old even by Kethmori standards, his chitinous plates scarred from decades of conquest, his 4 eyes burning with barely contained fury. "Explain to me," the Admiral's voice rumbled like distant thunder, "how a single primitive human has managed to reduce your forces to a state of complete ineffectiveness." Veltar's mandibles clicked nervously as he struggled to find words. "Sir, she's not like any enemy we've encountered before. Our intelligence reports suggested humans were a primitive species with limited tactical capabilities, but this individual appears to have capabilities far beyond a single human." Carthex's roar shook the temporary command bunker. We have conquered civilizations that span star systems. We have broken species that had mastered technologies your grandmother could only dream of. And you're telling me that one female from a species that barely knows how to leave its own planet is defeating the Kethmori Empire? Through her intercepted communications equipment, Maya listened to this conversation with satisfaction. The aliens were starting to crack at the highest levels. But she also noticed something troubling in the Admiral's tone. He wasn't just angry, he was scared. And scared leaders often made desperate decisions. Sir, Veltar continued, his voice barely above a whisper, she's killed 23 of our warriors in 8 days. She's disrupted our supply lines, destroyed our communications, and somehow managed to infiltrate our most secure positions. The troops are calling her the ghost that hunts gods in the old language. They're starting to believe she's some kind of supernatural entity. Maya's eyebrows raised. The ghost that hunts gods was a significant escalation from the phantom. In Kethmori culture, the old languages were reserved for legends and religious ceremonies. If the soldiers were using such terms, it meant her psychological warfare was working better than she had hoped. Supernatural? Admiral Carthex's laugh was like breaking glass. There's nothing supernatural about projectile weapons and improvised explosives. This human is simply using unconventional tactics against troops who have grown soft from too many easy conquests. I'm dispatching a special operations team to handle this situation. Maya frowned. Special operations meant trouble. The Kethmori Special Forces were trained specifically for asymmetric warfare and hunting high-value targets. They wouldn't make the same mistakes as the regular troops. The Death Seekers? Veltar's voice cracked with relief. Thank the old ones. If anyone can stop this phantom, it's them. Maya had heard whispers about the Death Seekers from intercepted communications. They were elite Kethmori warriors who specialized in impossible missions. They were said to be individually capable of conquering entire worlds, and they had never failed to eliminate a target. But Maya had advantages they didn't expect. She knew the terrain better than anyone. She had been studying Kethmori weaknesses for weeks, and, most importantly, she was fighting for more than just her own survival. Hidden throughout the ruined colony were 36 other human survivors. They were civilians, mostly families, children, elderly colonists who had managed to hide in underground bunkers and sealed shelters. Maya had been protecting them by drawing the aliens' attention to herself. But if the Death Seekers arrived, the game would change completely. She needed to escalate again, to make the cost of staying so high that even the special forces would be deterred. That evening, Maya put her most ambitious plan into action. She had been studying the Kethmori orbital support protocols, learning how they coordinated between ground forces and their ships. The aliens relied heavily on their technological superiority, using orbital strikes to support ground operations. Maya intended to turn that strength into a weakness. She had salvaged components from throughout the colony, industrial laser cutters, mining explosives, communication equipment, and, most importantly, the colony's emergency beacon transmitter. Working through the night, she assembled a device that the aliens would mistake for something far more dangerous than it actually was. At dawn, Maya positioned her improvised device in the center of the colony's main plaza and activated the transmitter. To Kethmori sensors, it would appear to be a human weapons platform charging for an orbital strike against their command ship. The response was immediate and predictable. Within minutes, the orbital command ship launched a devastating plasma bombardment against the plaza, completely obliterating Maya's device and creating a crater 50 meters wide. But Maya wasn't anywhere near the plaza. She was 3 kilometers away, watching through her scope as the Kethmori ground forces rushed to investigate the strike site. "What was that?" demanded Lieutenant Veltar as he arrived at the crater's edge. "Unknown," replied his chief technician, studying sensor readings. It appeared to be some kind of directed energy weapon, but the signature was unlike anything in our databases. The human may have been attempting to target our orbital assets. Maya smiled. The aliens had just demonstrated something crucial. They were willing to use orbital bombardment against a single sniper. That level of response indicated they were more afraid of her than they were admitting. It also meant they were getting desperate. As the Kethmori forces clustered around the crater, Arguing about what the mysterious device might have been, Maya implemented the second phase of her plan. She triggered a series of small explosions throughout the colony, each one designed to look like the aftermath of hidden weapons being destroyed by the orbital strike. To the aliens, it appeared that the human sniper had been building an entire arsenal of advanced weapons throughout the colony, and they had just accidentally helped her destroy the evidence. She was building weapons, Veltar whispered, staring at the scattered blast sites. Advanced weapons? How is that possible? Our intelligence said humans were technologically primitive. Maybe, his technician replied nervously. Our intelligence was wrong. That was exactly what Maya wanted them to think. Over the next few hours, she continued to reinforce the illusion, using salvaged materials to create the appearance of destroyed research facilities and weapons laboratories throughout the ruins. When Admiral Carthex reviewed the reports from the ground team, his reaction was everything Maya had hoped for. Abort the Death Seeker deployment, he ordered. If this human has access to advanced weapons technology, we need to reassess the strategic situation entirely. But Maya's psychological warfare was about to face its greatest test. Despite the Admiral's caution, 3 Death Seekers had already been dispatched before the abort order was issued. They were already in the planet's atmosphere, already hunting her. Captain Thexdor was the leader of the Death Seeker team, a warrior who had personally eliminated the leadership of 17 different species. He stood 9 feet tall, his bioarmor was black as space itself, and his weapons could level city blocks. He had studied the reports about the human sniper, and, unlike his terrified colleagues, he wasn't impressed. One human, he said to his 2 companions as their stealth ship landed in the colony's outskirts. Doesn't matter how clever she thinks she is. Doesn't matter what tricks she's learned. She's still just meat and bone, and meat and bone can be broken. Maya detected their landing through seismic sensors she had placed throughout the colony. 3 heat signatures, moving in perfect formation, using stealth technology that rendered them nearly invisible to conventional detection. But Maya wasn't using conventional detection anymore. She had learned to read the signs the aliens couldn't hide, the way birds fled when something passed beneath them, the subtle changes in wind patterns around cloaked objects, the tiny disturbances in dust, and debris that revealed invisible footprints. The Death Seekers were hunting her, but Maya had become something they had never faced before. She had become a hunter who could track the invisible, kill the invulnerable, and vanish from places that couldn't be escaped. The real battle was about to begin, and for the first time since the invasion started, Maya felt the thrill of facing truly worthy opponents. The aliens had stopped laughing at human weapons. Now, they were about to learn why humans had spent millennia perfecting the art of war. Them yet. She had learned something important from monitoring their communications. The Kethmori High Command was losing patience with the delays on this supposedly primitive world. They were considering withdrawing their forces and simply bombing the planet from orbit. Maya couldn't allow that. There were still human survivors hidden in bunkers throughout the colony, and she couldn't let them be killed in an orbital bombardment. She needed to escalate her campaign to make the cost of staying on the planet so high that the aliens would prefer to withdraw their forces rather than destroy it. As the Kethmori regrouped in a new position, Maya began planning her most ambitious operation yet. She was going to stop being just a sniper and become something much more dangerous. She was going to become a one-person guerrilla army. The aliens had laughed at human weapons and tactics when they first arrived. Now they were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or firepower. It was adaptability. And Maya-chan was about to show them just how adaptive one determined human could be. Hashtag the human sniper. Part 5. Captain Thexdor and his 2 Death Seekers moved through the ruins like shadows given form. Their stealth technology made them invisible to most sensors. Their bioarmor could withstand direct hits from military-grade explosives, and their weapons had eliminated targets that entire armies had failed to stop. But Maya-chan wasn't most targets. She had been tracking them for 6 hours, using skills her grandfather had taught her combined with hard-learned lessons from weeks of fighting the Kethmori. The Death Seekers were supremely confident in their technology, which made them predictable in ways they didn't realize. From her concealed position in the colony's water treatment facility, Maya watched the 3 aliens methodically search the industrial district. They moved in a perfect triangle formation, covering each other's blind spots, communicating through encrypted signals that changed frequency every 30 seconds. They were good, better than any enemy Maya had faced. But they had one crucial weakness. They had never fought an enemy who could adapt as quickly as humanity's best warriors. Target is skilled, Captain Thextor transmitted to his team. Track patterns suggest advanced military training. Estimated threat level, moderate. Maya almost laughed. Moderate threat level. These aliens have been conquering worlds for millennia, but they still didn't understand what they were facing. They saw her as a problem to be solved with superior firepower and technology. They didn't realize they were hunting someone who had been raised from childhood to be the perfect predator. Through her scope, Maya studied Captain Thextor's armor. Unlike the regular Kethmori troops, the Death Seeker's bioarmor had no obvious gaps or weak points. The neck joint that had served her so well was completely sealed. The armor appeared to be a single, seamless piece of living tissue that could adapt to threats in real time. But Maya's grandfather had taught her that every armor had a weakness. Find what they're trying to protect, little hawk, he used to say, and you'll find how to hurt them. The Death Seekers were protecting their sensor arrays. Maya could see the delicate equipment mounted on their shoulders and helmets, the technological eyes and ears that allowed them to track targets across entire continents. Those sensors were powerful, but they were also complex, which meant they were vulnerable to the right kind of interference. Maya reached into her pack and pulled out a device she had been saving for exactly this situation. It was a signal jammer she had built from salvage colony equipment, modified with alien components to broadcast on Kethmori frequencies. When activated, it would blind their sensors for exactly 47 seconds. 47 seconds to kill 3 of the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy. Maya triggered the jammer and watched as the Death Seekers suddenly stopped moving. Their perfect formation wavered as their sensors went dark. For a few precious seconds, they were as blind as any normal creature. Maya's first shot took the leftmost Death Seeker in the sensor array, shattering the delicate equipment and sending sparks cascading across his armor. The alien spun, disoriented, trying to locate the source of the attack. Her second shot struck Captain Thextor in the same location, destroying his primary sensors. The massive warrior roared in rage, firing his plasma cannon wildly in Maya's general direction. But Maya was already moving. She had learned from fighting the regular troops that staying in one place after firing was suicide. As plasma bolts sizzled through the air where she had been, she was rolling behind cover, changing position, preparing for her next shots. The third Death Seeker, Warrior Krelvin, was adapting quickly. Even without his primary sensors, he was using backup systems to triangulate Maya's position. His massive rifle tracked toward her new hiding spot with mechanical precision. Maya's third shot caught him just as he was about to fire, striking the backup sensor array mounted on his left shoulder. Krelvin's shot went wide, blasting a hole in the wall 3 meters from Maya's position. Impossible, Captain Thextor bellowed. No primitive weapon should be able to penetrate our sensor arrays. This human has technological capabilities beyond our intelligence estimates. Maya smiled grimly. The aliens still thought this was about technology. They couldn't conceive of a warrior who succeeded through skill, training, and sheer determination. Even now, after losing their technological advantages, they were looking for some hidden weapon or advanced system that explained her success. They couldn't accept that a single human with a modified rifle and infinite patience was simply better at warfare than they were. The Death Seekers regrouped, forming a defensive circle and activating emergency protocols. Without their advanced sensors, they were forced to rely on basic sight and hearing, reducing them to the same level as the regular troops Maya had been hunting for weeks. But Maya wasn't content to simply blind them. She had been studying their psychology as well as their technology, and she knew that warriors like the Death Seekers had one fatal flaw: pride. Using her captured Kethmori communicator, Maya broadcast a message on their command frequency. Captain Thextor. I am Staff Sergeant Maya Chun, Colonial Defense Force, Kepler 442b. I challenge you to single combat. Face me warrior to warrior, or admit that the mighty Kethmori Empire is afraid of one human soldier. The response was immediate and predictable. You dare challenge the Death Seekers? Thexdor's voice crackled with rage. Very well, human. I will show you why your species should have surrendered when we first arrived. Warriors, maintain perimeter. This human dies by my hand alone. Maya had been counting on exactly that reaction. The Kethmori culture valued individual combat highly, and Captain Thexdor's pride wouldn't allow him to admit that he needed help to defeat a single human. As the massive alien stalked toward her position, Maya prepared for the most dangerous fight of her life. Without his sensors, Thexdor was reduced to his natural abilities, but those abilities included enhanced strength, armor that could deflect military weapons, and centuries of combat experience. Maya had one advantage. The alien was fighting in her territory now. She led him on a chase through the ruins of the colony, using her knowledge of every building, every tunnel, every hidden passage. Thexdor followed relentlessly, his massive form smashing through obstacles that Maya slipped around easily. You cannot run forever, human, the alien captain roared. Stand and fight with honor. Honor, Maya called back as she vaulted over a pile of rubble. You talk about honor after invading a peaceful colony and slaughtering civilians? Your species is weak. You exist only to serve stronger races. This is the natural order. Maya reached her destination, the colony's old mining facility, where she had spent days preparing for exactly this confrontation. The building was riddled with tunnels, trapdoors, and hazardous equipment that Maya had turned into weapons. As Thexdor charged into the facility after her, Maya triggered the first of her prepared surprises. Industrial acid, stored in the mining equipment, sprayed across the alien's path. His bioarmor hissed and steamed as the acid ate into its surface. Chemical weapons. Thexdor snarled. Cowardly human tactics. But Maya wasn't finished. As the alien captain struggled through the acid trap, she triggered a series of controlled explosions that brought down part of the facility's roof. Tons of debris crashed down around Thexdor, forcing him to take cover. In the confusion, Maya struck with her rifle, placing 3 precise shots into the damaged sections of his armor. The rounds penetrated, drawing purple blood, but the wounds weren't fatal. The Death Seeker's armor was already beginning to repair itself. Enough! Thexdor roared, rising from the debris like an avenging god. I'm finished playing games. The alien captain activated some kind of berserker protocol, his armor glowing with energy as his strength and speed increased dramatically. He began tearing through the facility like a force of nature, smashing walls and equipment in his pursuit of Maya. Maya realized that conventional tactics wouldn't work against a berserker Death Seeker. She needed something desperate, something the alien would never expect. As Thexdor cornered her in the facility's power plant, Maya made a decision that would have horrified any sane person. She shot out the containment system for the facility's fusion reactor. Are you insane? Thexdor screamed as alarms began wailing throughout the facility. You'll kill us both. Maybe, Maya replied calmly. But I'll die free, while you'll die knowing that a single human beat the mighty Death Seekers. For the first time since the battle began, Captain Thexdor hesitated. The fusion reactor was beginning to destabilize, and even his advanced armor wouldn't protect him from a complete meltdown. In that moment of hesitation, Maya struck with the weapon she had been saving for last, an explosive charge placed in the exact spot where Thexdor would take cover from the reactor breach. The blast caught the alien captain at close range, finally penetrating his damaged armor and sending him crashing to the ground. As the fusion reactor reached critical instability, Maya activated the emergency transport she had prepared in the facility's escape pod. The explosion would level the entire complex, but she would be safely away before the blast wave reached her. Captain Thexdor, mortally wounded and trapped in a collapsing facility, sent one final transmission to his orbiting fleet. The human, she fights like the old gods themselves. Recommend immediate withdrawal. This world is cursed. The explosion lit up the sky like a second sun, visible from orbit. When the light faded, the mining facility was gone, along with the Death Seeker's most legendary captain. Admiral Carthex stared at the tactical display, showing the destruction, his 4 eyes wide with disbelief. One human, he whispered. One human killed Thexdor and his entire team. 3 hours later, the Kethmori fleet began withdrawing from Kepler, 442b. The official report stated that the planet had been found to contain unacceptable strategic complications and was being classified as a forbidden world. But the real reason spread through the alien empire like wildfire. Somewhere in the galaxy was a human who had defeated the Death Seekers in single combat. A warrior so dangerous that the mighty Kethmori Empire had retreated rather than face her again. Maya Chun, the sniper they had laughed at when they first arrived, had become something none of them had expected. She had become legend. As the alien ships disappeared into hyperspace, Maya stood in the ruins of her colony, watching 36 human survivors emerge from their hiding places. They looked at her with awe, this ordinary woman who had somehow driven off an entire alien invasion force through skill, determination, and unbreakable will. "What do we do now?" asked Dr. Sarah Kim, the senior surviving colonist. Maya shouldered her rifle and looked up at the stars where the aliens had fled. Now we rebuild. And we get ready for the next time someone decides to laugh at human weapons. The Kethmori Empire had learned a valuable lesson. Technology and superior numbers meant nothing against an enemy who refused to surrender. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their guns or their ships or their armies. It was their absolute refusal to give up. And Maya Chun had just proved that one human with enough determination could change the fate of entire worlds. The galaxy would remember her name, the ghost that hunts gods, the Phantom of Kepler, 442b, the sniper who became humanity's first legend among the stars. But to her, she was still just Staff Sergeant Maya Chun, doing what her grandfather had trained her to do, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, no matter the cost. The hunt was over, but the legend had just begun.